My wishes to the Honorable Consul General of India, distinguished members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen. I feel honored to be here today. On this day, as we assemble here to remember our martyrs, I take this opportunity to pay my sincere tributes to Shaheed Ajam Sardar Bhagat Singh, who has been a great inspiration to me in my life. The supreme sacrifice by Sardar Bhagat Singh makes him a youth icon, and people will remember his sacrifice for generations to come. At the stroke of midnight, as a nation awoke to life and freedom, its leadership took a pledge to fulfill the aspirations of its freedom fighters and martyrs. Over the years, our nation has achieved many goals. The task of nation building is a continuous process. The progress that nation has made in these years and in recent times makes every Indian proud of his country. Sardar Bhagat Singh was a radical socialist revolutionary. He led from the front to oppose an alien British rule and also inspired his people to raise their voice against all sorts of injustices by friends of the imperialists that consisted of the Jagirdars and the Jamindars. Of the scores of literature written by Sardar Bhagat Singh that has come down to us, I am drawn towards his views on rural uplift, particularly the emancipation of the peasants. We all know that Sardar Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt were tried in the assembly bomb case. But what is not very well known is the fact that Sardar Bhagat Singh had made a statement in the court during the trial. The statement is a testimony to Sardar Bhagat Singh's concern for the peasants. He had said, and I quote, "Producers and workers are the most important sections of the society, but the exploiting class loot their hard-earned income and also keeps them bereft of basic rights. Farmers, weavers, they are deprived of their rights. Farmers who grow food for everyone die of hunger. Weavers who weave clothes often have to live without clothes. Carpenters, blacksmiths, and masons who build massive buildings and palaces are forced to live in slums. The bourgeois and the other exploiters leech on them to make themselves a life of luxury and comfort at their cost." Unquote. Sardar Bhagat Singh's struggle for the freedom of the nation was not merely aimed at getting rid of the British rule. He wanted the nation to get rid of many other ills of the society that plagued the society those days. While the Congress resolved for Purna Swaraj and unfurled the tricolor flag of Indian independence on the banks of river Ravi on 31st of December 1929, Sardar Bhagat Singh outlined the agenda for complete independence in a letter he addressed to his group of revolutionaries. This letter, which is dated 2nd of February 1931, that is just a month and a half before he attained martyrdom, Sardar Bhagat Singh outlined the agenda of complete independence, which included the abolition of Jagirdari and Jamindari system and liberation of farmers from their clutches as the primary goal of an independent India. Bhagat Singh advocated restoration of ownership rights of land with the farmers. Bhagat Singh also favored the abolition of all taxes collected from the farmers except a minimum land tax, and he advocated nationalization of land by the government. This was the concept of the welfare state that Bhagat Singh dreamt of. Realizing these goals in the pre-independence era was a tough task. However, none had visualized that attaining these goals in the post-independence era will be equally tougher. Yet, some leaders showed the courage to take up Bhagat Singh's agenda of complete independence in right earnest and left no stone unturned in fulfilling the promises made to the revolutionary freedom fighters. Post-independence, Bihar led the nation in abolishing Jamindari by introducing a legislation to this effect. This law to abolish zamindari was introduced by Rajesh Sahay, who was the revenue minister in Sri Krishna Sinha's ministry in 1946. Let me say a few words about Rajesh Sahay at this stage. Rajesh Sahay was a brilliant student. He graduated in English literature from St. Columba's College in Hazaribagh in 1999 and topped the merit list, for which he was awarded gold medal by the then governor of the Chote Lat of the United Province of Bihar, Bengal and Orissa, His Excellency Sir Edward Gate. Thereafter he joined the freedom struggle at the call of Mahatma Gandhi and participated in non-cooperation movement. This was followed by his participation in the civil disobedience movement and the Quit India movement. He was jailed a number of times. As the Revenue Minister of Bihar, K.V. Sahay piloted the Jamindari Abolition Bill to nullify the impact of the Permanent Settlement Act of 1793, which was introduced by Lord Cornwallis. At a time when politics and to a large extent society were controlled by the landed gentry, it was no mean achievement for K.V. Sahay to come up with the bill which was sure to cause convulsions in the tradition-bound land-steeped society. Sure enough, the entire landed gentry controlled by the Jamindars went about displaying the honors and titles bestowed to them by an alien rule, and they also sought support from the highest leadership of the Congress. It was against this background that K.V. Sahay introduced the bill. But then just a few days before K.V. Sahay was to introduce the bill in the assembly, he was run over and seriously injured in a car accident. However, undaunted by this development, K.V. Sahay, with the support of all progressive opinion inside and outside the legislatures, finally introduced the bill in the assembly with a blood-stained bandage on his forehead, almost symbolizing the struggle that had to be waged to introduce the Jamindari abolition and give justice to the peasants and fulfill the promise the nation had made with revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh during the freedom struggle. The Jamindars challenged the bill in the court, which issued an injunction to the state government restraining it from implementing it. Finally, the bill had to be repealed. However, thanks to the support K.V. Sahay got from the then Chief Minister Sri Krishna Sinha, he revised the bill and introduced it as the Bihar Land Reforms Bill of 1949. It was passed as the Bihar Land Reforms Act 1950. Once again, the Jamindars challenged the act in the Patna High Court, which turned down on the ground that it contravened some provisions of the Constitution. It was now the turn of the central leadership of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to bring the first amendment to the Indian Constitution. The first amendment to the Indian Constitution introduced Schedule 9, and all such land legislations were brought under it and made beyond the purview of the court. Thus, Bihar was the first state in the nation to abolish Jamindari. However, the agenda of Jamindari abolition and bringing in the complete independence as envisioned by Sardar Bhagat Singh was still incomplete, and K.V. Sahay followed this with a series of legislation. The Bihar Westland Reclamation, Cultivation and Improvement Act brought all the wasteland that were enclosed by the Jamindars under the control of the government. This surplus land was distributed by the government among the landless peasantry and the laborers. This was followed by the Bihar Land Encroachment Act 1950. All the land which were enclosed by Jamindars as Gair Majarwa lands were again brought under the control of the government and distributed among the peasantry. Thirdly, the Bihar Private Forest Act was passed and the forests were brought under government control to help protect it from the unrestricted plundering by the Jamindars. To settle the issue of rent disputes between the Jamindars and the tenants, the Bihar government under K.V. Sahay brought the Bakas Land Dispute Settlement Act, which provided for establishment of an arbitration board at the panchayat level and this helped the tenants to regain their land. Finally, KBSI introduced the Bihar Agricultural Land Ceiling Act, which aimed to fix a ceiling of land which a Jamindar family could retain, and all surplus land were to be brought under government control to be distributed among landless peasantry. Through all these measures, KBSI restored the land to the peasants, which helped them regain their lost pride. Through all this legislation, though the goals of achieving an egalitarian society was still away, KBSI helped in bringing a change in the rural economy and society, where the peasants could now live without fear and with their heads held high. The agrarian reforms introduced by KB Sahay achieved the objective of complete independence as envisioned by Shaheed Ajam Sardar Bhagat Singh, and this is a real tribute to this great martyr. A moment comes in the journey of a nation when it pauses to pay its gratitude to its supreme freedom fighters and their sacrifice, and take a resolve to follow their footsteps. As a nation celebrates 75th year of independence as the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav to remember the unsung heroes of the freedom struggle, I take this opportunity to remind our nation to remember the contribution of Krishna Vallabh Sahay in agrarian reforms. He is an unsung hero in the post-independence era. I feel proud to be his descendant. I feel proud that a study on agrarian reforms in post-independence India is never complete without referring to the achievements of Krishna Vallabh Sahay. I feel proud that his agrarian reform formed part of doctoral research of scores of intellectuals and academicians across the world. KB Sahay was a courageous man, a man of steel, iron man of Bihar, as the Indian Nation, the leading press of Bihar, had said. It was an acknowledgement of his strong leadership style that saw him taking up the cudgels on behalf of the peasants to abolish the Jamindari system and help the nation redeem the pledge of a welfare state, if not wholly or in full measures, but substantially. Before I close, I express my thanks to Mr. Chitranjan Kumar Belwariyar, who is a brother who has been doing a great work at GOPIO, the GOPU. And it was his insistence and on his support that I am here before you to speak before you. I thank you all for giving me a patient hearing, and I thank you to listening me. Thank you.